Hello everybody, this is the King of Pikmin here yet again, and I'm bringing part 2 of my Monster Hunter Wilds wishlist. I know I said I was going to try to release these on a day-by-day basis, but obviously that didn't happen. I got busy over the weekend, had a lot of fun, but I'm back, and today we're talking about monsters that I think deserve to return for one reason or another. Now, I went over some stipulations in the first episode. I'm going to repeat myself a little here. Just because a monster's not on this list doesn't mean I think they don't deserve to return. Maybe we haven't seen them in a while, maybe I feel like they need an update, or maybe they have a good idea with the monster that maybe wasn't fully fleshed out. Now, I'm just one person, so feel free to disagree with my opinion on these monsters, but without further ado, let's get into it. And or Zamtrios. Sorry for the little fake out there, but I just had to find a way to use that because I just love that intro for Bombro so much. I mean, I know it's not an intro for Bombro, but that's just kind of how I take it. The reason I'm putting Bombro and Zamtrios into the same category is because I feel like Bombro is somewhat of a spiritual successor to Zamtrios. I love both these guys a ton. That's kind of also why I wanted to throw it in here. If I were to choose one, I would say Zamtrios deserves his turn to come back. He's been absent longer, obviously. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on Zamtrios here because some people might not be as familiar with him, but he's a really fun and cool monster, if I'm being honest. As opposed to Bombro using mainly his horns, Zamtrios uses mainly his tail. It's like a big club. He'll slam it around. It takes forever to cut off. I don't know if you have to break it 3 times. I think you might have to break it 3 times to actually sever it. I could be wrong on that. It might just be 2 times, but it takes a lot to sever it. And he has some really funny moves, like the one where he just spins like crazy. That's kind of like his signature. Like everyone knows Zamtrios for that move, where he just spins and just gains momentum constantly. And then he'll go flying into the air and just come flopping down. Really fun, interesting monster, to be honest with you. Simple, but fun. And when he's doing that spin, like the helicopter move, you can actually trip him up by doing enough damage to his legs. Or you might be able to do enough damage anywhere, but usually you want to get in real close and hit his feet as he's trying to spin. And then he gets tripped up and falls. It's a lot of fun. So I would love to see either of them come back, but Zamtrios, he definitely deserves his time to shine. I actually hold Nibblesnarf in pretty high regard. He didn't make my favorite monsters list, as you know if you watched part 1, but his fight is actually pretty amazing. He burrows in the sand a lot. He snaps his jaws at you when he gets close. He'll try to come up out of the sand. I almost said out of the water. He's just, it's almost like he's coming out of the water, but it's sand. And he does what you'd expect when you look at him. He's basically just a big mouth, just going around trying to bite everything. But he can also like sand blast out of his back, out of his gills. He can like dispel the sand behind him or shoot it in like a big beam at you. So there's a lot going on already. But if you put down a large barrel bomb and you can bait him into scooping it up in his mouth, you can do that a variety of ways. There's some moves where he charges you with his mouth agape and you can have it down and lead him into it. Or if he burrows, you can put it down and throw a sonic bomb in that direction, and it'll make him jump out of the ground with his mouth open. And long story short, once he has a barrel bomb in his mouth, he'll actually swallow it and it'll blow up, giving you free damage opportunity. But even more fun than that, you can come up close to him and interact with him, and you'll throw a fishing line into his mouth, hook him, and then you have a little fishing minigame to pull him out of the ground for even longer damage opportunity. It's honestly super cool, and it's a very interactive fight. So imagine what they could do with him in Wilds. That's where my mind goes. Does he really need an updated fight? Honestly, not really. He's very serviceable as is. I'm sure they would give him some new stuff. Just keep that mechanic of getting a bomb in his mouth and being able to fish him out of the sand, and I'd be happy. I don't know why. I just love the really quirky, you know, weird interactions like that in Monster Hunter. And Wilds has somewhat of a more realistic style, if you were to ask me, as compared especially to the older generations. And I feel like Nibblesnarf could actually be somewhat scary, honestly, because that would be a terrifying concept in reality. But I feel like people who got into Monster Hunter more recently deserve their chance to fight Nibblesnarf. But hey, maybe that's just me. Najarala has the special honor of being the only large monster classified as a snake wyvern, which is kind of mind-blowing if you ask me, that we only have one large snake wyvern. For that reason alone, I feel like Najarala should come back, because definitely has not gotten a chance to shine, in my opinion. But even aside from that, the fight is actually really engaging and really cool. I mean, I guess its primary mode of attack is debatable, but I would say more often than not, I find it trying to coil around me, and then it leaves a little gap with its tail sometimes, and you have to try scooting out, getting away from it. Otherwise, it'll burrow in the ground and burst up from under you while you're coiled up, doing massive damage. And I just feel like that's an interesting mechanic, because, I mean, it gets coiled, and the first time it happens, you're just like, what is happening, you know? But then you learn, oh, there's an opening, I gotta try getting out. But then Najarala also will sometimes try to bite at the opening, so if you're not quick enough, it'll bite you, and that'll paralyze you, and then you're gonna eat the damage anyways. So it's like a mini game within the fight almost, that he goes for that pretty often too. So it's very interesting for me. Then it can throw spines similar to Sergios. I mean, I say spines, I don't know what to classify them as, maybe scales, and it can detonate those as well. I really don't have too much more to say about Najarala. Great fight, underdeveloped as far as classification for monsters. And Wilds having such a dangerous landscape, the whole point of Wilds is how dangerous the wilds are. And what better way than to throw in snake monsters, because even Balahara in the new game isn't considered a snake wyvern. That's a leviathan, if I'm not mistaken. So we really need some representation for snake wyverns, in my opinion. And Najarala, it's right there. You could do a new one, but you have a really cool monster already, so I say just bring him back.
What do you have in your sights this time, huh? Business is about to pick up. With Egghead wrecking the place. Have fun. I'll leave this one to you. We'll rendezvous later.
Basil geese, bagel cheese, basil juice, like whatever you want to call this guy. This pick I feel like is going to be the most contentious, because he debuted in World, right? Then he got a variant in Iceborne, and then both the base version and his variant showed up in Rise and Sunbreak. So he hasn't had any shortage of appearances. Does that automatically mean he doesn't deserve to come back? In my opinion, no. I might be a little bit biased, because my main squeeze when it comes to Monster Hunter, my hunting brother in arms, is very partial to Basilgeuse, we would say. So I feel like he would particularly miss Basilgeuse if he wasn't in this game. But even aside from the bias and whatnot, the reason he keeps appearing is because he really made his mark with the community. The chaos he brings is unrivaled as far as I'm concerned. And Wilds, again, such a harsh landscape, harsh wilderness, perfect opportunity to have just a B-52 bomber flying around. And with the pack mechanic, imagine a fleet of bagel cheese. Now, do I think they would do a fleet of bagel cheese? Probably not. That'd be pretty wild. But imagine that sight. That would be sick. Now, if I was supposed to be, if I was supposed to be defending my case for Basilgeuse to come back, it'd be difficult because I don't have any specific examples for you. It just seems to feel right. His aesthetic fits the aesthetic of new monsters, in my opinion, for Wilds. The open world, he has more opportunities to fly in and dive bomb out of the blue. It just seems ripe with opportunities for Basilgeuse to really shine. Not that he hasn't had his chance already, but I don't think that should bar him from appearing in this game. Maybe you guys won't agree with that. Be sure to let me know, but let's get on to the next monster. All right, here we have another quirky one. Zamtrios. He starts off very fearsome, very intimidating, but then he has basically a third phase. He's got his base form, I guess you could say. Then he gets the ice armor, and then after the ice armor, he gets fat. That's basically it. He bloats himself up, kind of like Tetranodon does, but Zamtrios did it first. And he'll just roll around and hop around, and it is insanely funny. The only thing against Zamtrios, as far as appearing in Wilds, I don't know if he really fits the vibe of the game. But I didn't think Congalala did either, and Congalala's coming back, so I feel like Zamtrios definitely could possibly come back. You know a big shark monster is cool and interesting when I want them to come back, because if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I have a very irrational fear of the water, sharks, things of that nature. So me wanting a big shark to come back, it says a lot. I feel like it speaks volumes. He has a lot going for him. I mean, most monsters don't have basically 3 phases. He hasn't been absent for too terribly long, but he did skip out on the entire, 5th generation. So I feel like now would be a time. We haven't seen an ice locale yet, so I feel like a lot of ice monsters that we haven't seen in a while might be coming back in Wilds, and they just haven't shown the locale yet. I mean, I assume there's gonna be an ice locale. I guess there's no guarantee, but either way, that's me going on a tangent. Zamtrios definitely should get his chance to come back. This one's kind of out of left field, Malfestio. I only had like the Generations Ultimate cutscene to show. He doesn't actually have a real cutscene. Like, he was debuted in, I believe, Generations, and then of course he's in Generations Ultimate as well. But I think he is exceedingly unique, and that is why I really like Malfestio. Doesn't even have any real lore about him. He's very unknown, and I feel like he deserves to be fleshed out more. He has a mechanic that most gamers hate, where if you get hit with the orange mist, it confuses you and reverses your controls. Is that fun? No, but is it unique for Monster Hunter? Yes, and it is very enticing for me to want to avoid that, because no one wants their controls reversed. He can put you to sleep with his little hypnotic beam, and aside from that, it's basically what you'd expect from an owl. He just kind of claws at you, He does do like some butt slams and whatnot, but I love while you're fighting him, he'll like charge sometimes, but if you get behind him, his head will swivel 180, just like an owl with his glowing red eyes, and then the body will follow shortly after. And just something about the way Malfestio is presented, I think is interesting. And while he's not one of my favorite monsters of all time, maybe he could be, because he hasn't had his chance to get fleshed out more. What better time to do that than Monster Hunter Wilds? At least in my humble opinion. This is an interesting one because Monoblos is very important to the lore of Monster Hunter for those who are curious or care about that. I know it's an exceedingly rare monster and it's like somewhat protected by the guild, and that is probably the explanation why Diablos kind of took over as far as like the horned desert monster. I mean, they basically fight the same. They really need to bring this guy back and differentiate him from Diablos. And they need to do away with the solo hunt only. I understand. I think it's something to do with like a respect thing. When you're trying to prove your worth, you go and fight a Monoblos solo. Anytime, I mean, I mainly play single player anyways, but as far as I know, you can only fight him in single player hunts in any of the games. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, please, in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'd like him to be able to be fought in multiplayer, but this is a new... These are the Forbidden Lands, places that are unexplored. Maybe there could be a lot more in this new region. He deserves better because, like I said, Diablos kind of took over. And I feel like that's kind of doing him dirty because even in the lore, the reason the guild only allows 4 hunters to go out at a time, it's kind of like a bad luck thing. Because there was one of the first hunting parties. I know, sorry, this became lore minute, I guess, but one of the first hunting parties was a group of 5. And when they went to fight a Monoblos, Monoblos killed one of them. And it became just kind of like a, you know, bad luck. Like if you bring a 5th person on a hunt, they're gonna die. Is basically why the guild only allots like 4 hunters to each hunt. And for a monster to be so important, to have set all these rules and been so integral to like the start of the guild, it's weird that it got kind of left in the dust. So in my opinion, now is the perfect time to bring him back, give a lore reason as to why he's more plentiful in this new Forbidden Land, and really give him a new moveset that differentiates him from Diablos. Because if I'm being honest, I mean, it's a very small thing, but I think Monoblos is cooler than Diablos. Just the one horn, almost looks like a Triceratops head. I love it. That's the final monster on my list of monsters I think deserve to return. Let me know what you think about it. Are there any you disagreed with? Do you agree with them all? Do you disagree with all of them? And what monsters that weren't on this list do you think deserve to come back? Now, I should specify again, just because they weren't on this list doesn't mean I don't want them to come back. I'm all for returning monsters, especially in older gens that didn't have a time to shine. I said it in part 1 as well, but I lean towards new monsters more so than returning monsters, just because then everyone gets to experience it for the first time. But that's not super sustainable and everyone has their favorites, so returning monsters got to come back, of course. But that'll do it for the list. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and look forward to part 3 where I go over my Elder Dragon wish list.